I'm over here at Shannon's house, my mentee with the Montgomery County Beekeepers Association, and we're doing a hive inspection. She called me a couple weeks ago and says, I think my bees are ready to add another box. And so we're over here checking that out today. She's got a nuke that she purchased earlier this year. You can see these 4 frames here are the nukes. And you can see they are covered with bees. They are shoulder-to-shoulder bees. And the bees have really done fantastic as far as growing from a nucleus to a full hive. She has been feeding them with sugar water. They've been going through a lot of sugar water, and they have stored that sugar water, so they are actually at this point honey bound in this hive. But the honey that they've been storing is absolutely beautiful. I mean, that is just wonderful honey. This is all sugar water honey, so it's not something that you'd want to eat, but it's great for the bees, and they'll be able to use this for winter. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to checker box this hive and put another 10-frame brood box on top of here. So we're simply going to take every other frame and put it in the top box, and then put a new frame in between. There'll be half new frames in the bottom and half new frames on the top. That'll give the queen plenty of room to lay eggs and plenty of room for the bees to store honey. On the bottom of all these frames, they have been building a lot of comb, which is another indication that they're out of room to store honey and to lay eggs. So that her timing could not be better. We saw just one frame that had some drone cells on it, but we saw no queen cells, so they're not to the point that they are going to swarm. Another week or two maybe would have been too late. So here she's brought out the new frames. She bought a painted box, and you can see she has the plastic foundations in here, and we're going to start checkerboarding this box. So she's taken frame number 10. You notice that she has them numbered so she can keep track of them. Now she's going to take frame number 8, and then 6, and then go through the process. Look at that beautiful honeycomb on there. It's absolutely incredible. She's done an excellent job in keeping these bees. They're in the shade of the trees in the morning, and they get afternoon sun. There are no diseases that we can see in here. So very few hive beetles, maybe 5 or 6 or so. You can see this frame here, frame number 6, has brood in it, right in here, capped brood, and capped honey all the way around the brood. So that's excellent. It's exactly what we're looking for. And that side is full of honey. So this is the 3rd frame we're putting in, and by far the majority of it is honey. Typically you want to actually see more brood in a brood box than you want to see capped honey. So she has not done a harvest this year, and typically you don't do a harvest the first year. But look at all those honeybees on there, and the honey and the brood kind of mixed in between. Over here, these are drone cells. You can see they're sticking up bigger than the other cells. That's quite a few drone cells on that frame. Typically an indication of swarming. These are very active bees. I don't know if it's the genetic or just that there are so many of them that they're irritated. But we're going to take care of that problem right now. Okay, this top brood box is now populated with the frames. She's simply going to take the new empty frames and put them in the bottom brood box. Notice that she's taking caution, taking her time. She's not banging things around. She's doing an excellent job in managing this hive. The bees are going to be much happier having this extra space where they can move around. Now typically when you do this, you may want to give them some sugar water so they can pull comb, but because they have so much stored honey, we're not sure whether we're going to be doing that or not. We may give them one feeding of sugar water, but they've got so much stored honey, they probably don't need it. Okay, so now the bottom brood box is done. We're going to go ahead and put the top brood box on top after we smoke them to get the bees out of the way so we don't crush the bees. You notice that the bees are clearing off the edges here as she smokes, and that will help reduce the number of casualties when she puts the new brood box on top. This brood box is only has 50% of the frames have anything on it, which means it's going to be about 30 or 40 pounds. A 10 frame deep brood box full of honey is going to be 80 plus pounds. Notice how she's kind of twisting that on, giving the bees a chance to get out of the way. You're going to have some casualties, but when these boxes weigh this much, it's hard to move them around. So as a hobby beekeeper, you need to decide how much weight you want to be able to move around and whether you have help in working with your hives or not. She's now putting the feeder up on top. We'll let them go ahead and empty this feeder. It's about a third of the way full, and that'll give them some sugar water to get started to start pulling comb on these new frames. Again, noticing she's doing the twisting as she puts it on. Very good technique. The bees really have been building comb all over inside the hive because they really ran out of room. So we're going to be removing the comb that's in the little entrance area on top of this feeder. Something that Shannon could do to make it easier to work with the bees when she's feeding them is simply put some window screen on top of this, and so she can take the top cover off and the inner cover. She can pour the sugar water into the feeder and not get the bees in the air. I do have a video on how to do that, and I'll put the link below this video. Okay, notice we have some bees here, but since she's doing the sliding motion, it gives them time to get out of the way. The majority of them will get out of the way. Some of them are a little slower than others, so they're removed from the gene pool. All right, there is an updated hive. We just bumped it up to 2 brood boxes. It is about the middle of September. That'll give them plenty of time to build up new honey stores, which they really don't need for winter because they have so much honey in there now. So any lessons from today, Shannon?
Yes. Learned about better inspecting. I never knew about the pollen. Learned about seeing the pollen, the yellow, textbook, honey on the sides, brood in the middle with some honey on each side of the brood forming, and I got a better look at the larvae, how many weeks old they were according to size. And
so what Shannon's talking about is before we came over to her beehive, she came over to mine, and we went through a couple beehives so she could have a comparison between her hive and mine. Without a comparison, you don't know whether a hive is doing well or not. This hive is doing extremely well. Okay, any other lessons about bringing equipment out to the bee yard before you get started with the bees so you don't have to go back in the house?
Yes. Well, yeah, always have all your equipment out, and I never put my smoker on the edge of the fence before. I've seen this ledge, but I never really thought about using it like that. So I learned to put that there, and I feel good about my hive. Good to know that I'm expanding the family.
Yes, you've done an excellent job here.
All right, thank you.
This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. And if you're a good beekeeper, you manage your hives, be in there once or twice a month, making sure they have plenty of room to grow for honey stores and laying brood, you'll have a healthy, strong hive.